Hi, welcome to another tutorial on developing your individual oral commentary for the diploma program. Here to help us today is going to be an idea from Simon Sinek. Now, you may recognize Simon Sinek from his amazing TED Talk. We've taken a look at this in class. So let's take a look at how we can apply Simon Sinek's idea of the golden circle to our IOC. Remember that when you're developing your IOC, you really want to keep the why at the heart of your commentary. You want to be proving that not only can you identify literary devices, or not only can you identify the choices that the author is making, but that you can also do the critical thinking necessary to unpack why those choices were made. So that's why in Sinek's golden circle with the why at the center, it's sort of a good model for us to play around with when we're doing our initial annotations of extracts. Now, for our purposes, we are going to be using Things Fall Apart, looking at a specific extract. And this extract is on page 196 over to 197. So please have that extract in front of you, and let's continue. So starting with this outer ring, you can see that I've identified a few things for the what. That would be irony, foreshadowing, tension, simile, symbol, and imagery. Now what you need to do is start working your way inwards, getting closer to the why. So getting closer to the why means also looking at the how. So how has Chinua Achebe used those devices that I've listed? So if we look at tension, there's potential for violence here. We get this idea right at the beginning of the extract. Unless payment is made, there's going to be violence, there's going to be hangings. We have some foreshadowing. We have the voice of children not heard, so it's full moon, but activities have changed in this extract. That's foreshadowing maybe a little bit of change to come. We have irony at the end of the extract. They did not know that 50 bags would go to the court messengers who would increase the fine for that purpose. We have imagery of the silence. We have the full moon as our symbol. We have several similes in this extract. So here we are. We finally arrived to the why. And for me, I really like to go back, think about the different themes evoked in the novel, and make sure that when I'm thinking about the why and the choices that the author has made, that I'm at least linking those choices back with one theme. So I'd think back to the themes, the idea of the struggle between change and tradition, varying interpretations of masculinity, the importance of language to its culture, the importance of our ability to communicate with one another, and I'd look at those choices and I'd decide on some themes. So here you can see I've picked the struggle between change and tradition, and I've also selected what I've written there as gender roles, but I'd link that to the theme, varying interpretations of masculinity. You see both of those played out by the choices that Chinua Achebe has made in this extract here. So again, this notion of change, whether or not the characters are able to change and adapt, that's very important to the whole novel. It's really what makes Okonkwo our tragic hero, and we're getting, in this extract, we're very, very close to his tragic ending. And again, we definitely understand by now that it's his inability to change and adapt that is that flaw that it really kind of positions him as the tragic hero. So we have that symbol of the full moon. We have this idea of foreshadowing that something violent is to come. And we see in this paragraph, it was the time of the full moon, but that night the voice of children was not heard. The village Ilo, where they always gathered for a moon play, was empty. The women did not meet in their secret enclosure to learn a new dance to be displayed later in the village. Young men who were always abroad in the moonlight kept their huts that night. Their manly voices were not heard on the village paths as they went to visit their friends and lovers. So we get this idea that nature is almost forcing this change on the people, and we kind of again see some foreshadowing that maybe whether or not they want to change, they might have to. This full moon sort of evoking this eerie sense, perhaps a little bit of imagery employed as well. And maybe Most important is that use of irony, that idea at the very end of the extract. They did not know that 50 bags would go to the court messengers who would increase the fine for that purpose. So that irony can really only be employed because we have that third person omniscient narrator. And Achebe has to do that if he wants really the reader's emotional response to be authentic. Because if the author is telling us at this point that we need to dislike the white men, it's maybe not going to be as authentic as though the omniscient narrator is just laying out the plot for us, just showing us what's going on, and then we can sort of, again, begin to be swayed or begin to kind of form those opinions ourselves. And again, we have this notion here of the struggle between change and tradition. Who gets involved in that? Is there a villain? Does somebody force change? Is forcing change a bad thing? And is Okonkwo's inability to change, is that something that is going to be acceptable or not? So that's just a little sampling, my example of how you can use Simon Sinek's golden circle to help you as you continue to practice, you continue to rehearse your individual oral commentaries.